So, good morning, everybody. You're very welcome to this week's Let's Talk Dairy webinar. As always, we're joined by a Grass10 team member. John Douglas is with us this morning in terms of giving us an overview in terms of the grass situation and where we're at nationally. And I suppose I'd say a lot of our viewers, John, are hoping you're going to predict some decent amounts of rainfall over the coming days and into early next week. We then will be joined by Emer Kennedy, Teagasc Researcher, and we're going to talk about something that there's a lot of interest in terms of the idea of milking 10 times in 7 days and the research that's going on in that area. So I suppose without further ado, John, where are we at in terms of the grass situation? I suppose a lot of people have been looking for rain.
Yeah, so look, average growth in pasture base has gone down to 47, which is, obviously it's the lowest it's been in a while. 47 as a national average is very low because it means even the farms that were growing well are suffering now. So we really see it's coming probably more of a widespread, nationwide issue at the moment, I suppose, not just the dry areas. But in saying that, and soil moisture deficits are up over 70 in places, which was really hampers growth probably below 30 in them scenarios. But a lot of the country is catching up then, probably over 50 in a lot of places of soil moisture deficits, so they're all starting to suffer. But saying that, it is predicted for the next week that there could be between 30 to 40 mil in, especially in those drier areas that are suffering most, and actually in further into the west that maybe aren't as high soil moisture deficits. They're even getting up in 3 inches of rain. Now that was from Tuesday, and they may have even got some of that rain. I know there was heavy rain there in Galway on Tuesday, so they might have got some of that already. So if we're looking into next week, James, we're thinking soil moisture deficits are probably going to be decreased over the next week, which is a great thing, because that only means one good thing for growth, and growth should go back up. So if we're looking at growth around the country at the moment, you're looking at 30s, 40s, a lot of places. And next week, Elodie's most grass growth prediction model is looking at 40s, 50s, and 60s even for some places. So we are looking at that picking back up, which is great news. So at the moment, what we're saying, like before that grass growth does pick up, we still need to hold on to average farm cover. We want to hold a farm cover over 550 kilos of dry matter per hectare. We can do that by holding rotation length at around 25 days and filling the gap. So if you have 100 acres on the farm, on the grazing platform, you graze 4 acres a day. And if you need, the equivalent of 5 or 6 or 7 acres, well, then that has to be filled with feed in the yard, extra feed in the yard, whether it's silage or other supplement. Yeah. So look, that's the key meshes on that. We are in that green drought. Grass is still growing, so we don't want to run farm cover down. We have to protect the grass growth, especially as we see this rain coming into the forecast. If we hold on to that farm cover, that will speed up how quick we recover out of this. Okay, maybe just on the fertilizer side of things, because guys are going to be a lot of questions. If it's raining, will it spread fertilizer? I would wait until some rain has probably come till I spread fertilizer, because we don't know if the showers that are coming, are they going to be big heavy showers that might just wash stuff away or not. It'd be nice that the ground is even softened up a little bit from some rain, and then if there's more coming, which it looks like in the forecast, it's over a period of days, that I would be going based on my decisions then. We're probably looking at like even 15 to 20 units of nitrogen per acre. If we can get compound into this as well, it'll help, because those plants, even through the springtime and all, has been really stressed, and now it's dried out, so it's stressed, and there's a lot of thin swards on the ground, so we'd like to get them thickened up. So we're going to avoid topping. If there's paddocks there that are poor quality, wait till that growth picks back up, take them as bales next time. Don't be rushing in to try and to top everywhere something just because it's starting to rain. Go easy on the fertilizer. There's there'll be a lot of nitrogen in that ground ready to be used up by the grass plant when moisture comes. We've seen that in the last few years, where cows actually don't graze out paddocks for 2 or 3 days after the rain because there's this rush of nitrogen into the grass. So it is there. So just have faith that it's there, and be judicious with fertilizer use then as things start to take up a bit in terms of growth. So I suppose to summarize then, James, you're looking at suppose things are tight at the minute, but there's high grass utilization due to the dry matter in the grass. Rain looks to be en route, so that means growth's going to pick up. But continue to hold your average farm cover above 550 and hold that rotation length at 25 days. One thing I probably didn't mention is complete a fodder budget. A lot of farms there are tight this year. Get the fodder budget done now. Now is the time to do it, not in December, right? So get it done now.
Thanks a million, John. As always, as you say, it's important in terms of just maintaining cover. When the rain comes, do give it time. Keep the feed in there until swards recover and pre-grazing yields recover to a situation where we can take it out. As always, thanks a million in terms of very timely. And I suppose I think there's a lot of people tuning in over the last couple of weeks, and you have some positive news. So we'll get you back on, I think, John, next week. So appreciate that. So I've Emer Kennedy, as I outlined at the start. Emer's a researcher in Teagasc Moor Park. We're delighted to have Emer on because I understand Emer is under pressure down there. He's of the Moor Park Open Day coming up on the 4th of July, and some of this will be discussed further. But just to get a flavour for that, in terms of there's kind of a new body of research over the last couple of years. You have been doing milking frequency work, but this whole question and this whole idea, which is probably new to a lot of people, of milking 10 times in 7 days. Before maybe we get into that and how that works, can you explain a little bit maybe about the milking frequency project that's ongoing and has been for a long number of years now in Moor Park?
Good morning, James. Yes, it is pretty busy here for the build up to the open day. So just to go to the milking frequency work that we've been doing. So over the last number of years, we've been running a program where we've looked at full term or long term once a day milking for the whole lactation compared to twice a day. We've also looked at once a day milking at key points during the lactation. So be it in early lactation or the end of lactation, or like say the early and the end of lactation. And there's been pretty good results from that. Since then, what we've moved on to looking at is more this kind of milking frequency work. So kind of using a bit of once a day milking strategically. So there's a number of ways that you can do that. So you can milk cows 3 times in 2 days, but that tends to have hours that they're kind of they're not standard hours that you're working or you're milking at each day or every second day. So we've taken the 10 and 7 approach, which is 10 milkings in 7 days. So that means that you're milking twice a day on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday, and you milk once a day on a Tuesday, a Thursday, a Saturday, and a Sunday. So the milking times then around that will be, like, say, for example, what we milk in the morning at 7 o'clock. On a twice a day, we milk at 7 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then on a once a day, that milking should be around 10 o'clock in the morning. And maybe say 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning and maybe 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning. But to be honest, the hours change a little bit here. So there is a little bit of flexibility if you even want to bring it back an hour or so.
And that really, I suppose, in terms of why you went with that 10 and 7 for our viewers, is compared to the 3 and 2, as you say, that the milking times are friendly from a labor perspective, from a farmer perspective, in terms of that they're still at periods in the day that fits within the working day, as such, rather than maybe having to get up at ungodly hours as such.
And I think there's for farmers who are thinking about this, they sometimes kind of say, well, I don't want to milk at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning because like the rest of the day is kind of gone then, because I'm milking too late. So say there's no problem like bringing it back to maybe 9 o'clock in the morning or 8:30, depending on your herd size and how long milking takes. The cows can be quite flexible around it.
So tell us, in terms of how long has this been going, and just explain, you have kind of a couple of elements to the study.
Yeah, so we're in our second year now of this 10 and 7 work. So last year was the first year of it, and we had 3 treatments in place. So we had our standard twice a day herd. So that's cows that we milked twice a day every day for full lactation. We then had a herd that we milked 10 and 7 for the full lactation. So again, they were like they're twice a day on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and once a day the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And that was for the full lactation. And then we had a third herd, which we milked twice a day for the first half lactation, so around the first 20 weeks. And then we changed them over to 10 and 7 for the second half lactation. So that meant it was actually the 4th of July last year that they changed over to the 10 and 7. So like we're just repeating it this year just to ensure that the results that we got, we'll say, from last year are similar to this year.
Okay. And in terms of then, I suppose what viewers and listeners will be interested in terms of the parameters then that you're measuring. So tell us a little bit in terms of animal performance. Where is that at? It's all well and good in terms of reducing the number of milkings, but are we going to significantly reduce in terms of animal performance as a result?
Yeah, so if we just like we're trying to look at the whole concept of it, so both the production and the welfare side. So we're measuring milk yield, milk production. We look at locomotion scoring, other scoring, looking at their firmness. That if say the 10 and 7 cows come in on a once a day, is their udder really firm that it's uncomfortable for them, which we haven't found. And condition score, fertility, that and body weight, obviously, that kind of thing. So in terms of the production, when we milk cows 10 and 7 for the full lactation, we're looking at a reduction in milk yield of about 10% and a reduction in milk solids yield of about 12%. Very interestingly, and again, why we're repeating it this year, is that when we switched those cows over to 10 and 7 for the second half lactation, so again, they were milked twice a day for the first half lactation, then switched at the start of July to 10 and 7, there was absolutely no difference in the production performance in terms of milk yield or milk solids between those cows and cows that were milked twice a day for the full lactation. So, you know, in our mind, if like, you know, this is repeatable, and that's a really good result, that it gives farmers a lot of flexibility, that, you know, they might prefer to go 10 and 7, not get that 10 to 12% loss in milk and milk solids if they were doing it for the full lactation. But like, you know, when breeding and everything is over, that you can switch, and it frees up a bit of time then in the summer and into the autumn.
Lots of people would say that's game changing as such. If you can, if those results are repeated again this year, in terms of that you can switch, you can take a number of milkings out of the working week, and ultimately to deliver the same level of performance. In terms of the welfare side of things, and you mentioned that, one of the things, I suppose, and you listed all the parameters there that you're measuring in terms of that it doesn't have a negative impact on cow welfare. But one of the things in terms of from switching, I suppose, from twice a day to once a day, always some of the key challenges at farm level there is somatic cell count and how that's managed. And it can be difficult, Emer, in terms of changing that milking frequency. What have you seen? And I understand it's only 1 year's data in terms of even the full-time 10 and 7. Is it, are you having the same difficulties in managing SCC that you would be having possibly in a once a day system?
So yeah, what we've found from all the milking frequency work is that when you drop a milking, so when you go to once a day milking, you tend to increase your somatic cell count. So for the full-time 10 and 7 herd, their cell count was about 10% higher than the cows milked twice a day for the full lactation. Over, like when we look at what we call the part-time, so the ones that switched to 10 and 7 for the second half lactation, there was a small increase in cell count again when we started to drop the milkings, but over the whole lactation they weren't significantly different to the cows that were milked twice a day for the full lactation.
Okay, yeah.
And I should add to that, in terms of the clinical cases of mastitis, there was actually no difference in clinical cases of mastitis between any of the treatments. It was just that increase in cell count.
Yeah, a small little, but in terms of 10%, so if somebody is sitting at 150,000, you're looking at something in the region of 165, 170,000 then in that situation.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, if someone's sub 100,000, you're probably going to increase it something in the region of 10,000. Okay. In terms of then, I suppose, the actual overall animal performance and viewers, there's the opportunity there to ask questions. So don't leave it all up to me. Emer would love to hear from someone else. So do post your questions there in the chat box, and we will ask them. In terms of overall animal performance, I suppose people are wondering, there'll be people on here with different levels of animal performance, maybe from 400 up to maybe 550 kilos of milk solids per cow. Where is that actually at within that Moore Park system?
So I should preface it by saying about 23% of the herd were heifers, so there's quite a high proportion of heifers in it. And with that, then they did about 470, 480 kilos of milk solids. That's on the twice a day level. So then come back, you're 12% in the milk solids for full time, the 10 and 7, and then like there was no difference between the twice days and the part time 10 and 7s.
And the level of feed obviously was remain constant across the groups then.
Oh yeah, so everything in terms of grass quality, like they graze side by side, and they're given the same concentrate input. So they would have been given about 350 kilos concentrate last year.
Okay, very good. So yeah, when we look at it from a national perspective, low levels of concentrate going in to get that level of performance, which should be highlighted. Question in from Dermot. What would you say is the cutoff for SEC if you're thinking of switching to a 10 and 7 regime?
Like I guess that's kind of like herd dependent in a way. Like we would say for the autumn, because there's such a massive increase in cell count, that your cutoff should be 100,000. But you probably, because it's a 10% increase, you can probably go a bit higher than that. You might have cows that aren't suited to it, that they might like continuously have a high cell count, and you might need to consider drying those off, or like calling them from the herd if this is kind of what you plan to like a milking frequency that you plan to use going forward.
Yeah, and that's a good point in terms of there's probably a number of individual cows there in the herd, Emer, as you said, that actually, if they were taken out of the system, bull tank SEC can often drop significantly, and it may leave a herd open to actually switching then in that situation.
Yeah.
In terms of then time savings, so like people would say that in terms of, okay, less milking frequency, is it taking me longer to milk the cows? Are you measuring that throughout the study in terms of what's the actual savings from a time perspective for a farmer?
So we still have to analyze, we say that set of data from last year, but if I just go back to the once a day work that we've looked at, and really we only look at, say, cups on time or actual milking time, because herd sizes are different, farm layouts are different, so it's very difficult to account for, like, say, the time for getting cows in, or parlor size and that. So what the actual cups on time that we're looking at is a 30% saving. Now, it's worth noting that on those once a day days, it's going to take longer to milk the cows out. So like your morning milking will probably be a little bit longer, because it's the second morning, so it'll be like the Wednesday morning, the day after the once a day will probably take a little bit longer, because you have that full yield from the previous day to milk out.
Yep. Okay. Very, very good. A couple more questions in there. I think we could be busy on this board at the Moore Park Open Day. Cow type. Question around cow type. Do crossbred suit this system better than Holstein Friesian? I'm sure you have probably a mix of. You have a mix.
Yeah,
you have a range of types of cows on it.
So we'd have about a third of Jersey crosses. So we would count a Jersey cross as anything with 25% or more Jersey genetics in it. And really, we haven't found a difference or a breed effect in it, like, say, some New Zealand work. I should also add that this is the first controlled experiment of its type in the world. So like in New Zealand, they have some work done, and they might say that the losses are a bit less. They might say, somewhere 5-8% reduction. But what they do is that they have their, like, the full herd will be on 10 and 7 this year, and they compare back to production last year. And we know that there's so many variables between years that it's kind of, it's not a true comparison or a fair comparison of it, that you need to implement both treatments in the same year to get the
Yeah,
true effect.
you have your control there, which is your full-time twice-a-day system.
Yeah,
side by side.
exactly. So yeah.
Okay, very good. And in terms of, just to come back to that, you're not seeing any impact from a cow type point of view?
No, sorry, yeah, no, we haven't seen any effect. Like the New Zealanders would sometimes say in their experiments that Jersey cross type animals are more suited to it. We haven't found that. Like, we have kind of like different cows as well. We'll have cows that are peaking over 40 kilos, and cows that are doing a lot less, and there's kind of no effect of breed or genetics there for us.
Okay. A question in from Grania. Very good question, actually. How do you manage grass allocation in the autumn? So when you're down to those 12-hour allocations, so how do you manage them once a day days in the 10 and 7, especially with silage going into the diet? And that's a
Yeah.
challenge in all systems, but definitely in terms of when the cows are only coming in once.
So again, your grazing management, you'll still need to stick to the same principles. Like if you're grazing heavy covers in the autumn, you will need to do 12-hour allocation. So it might be a case of going down and just taking up the reel and letting them on. And just on that, another question that often comes up is like, with the cows be unsettled, say like on a Tuesday, they're once a day, they're expecting to come in the afternoon, and are they a bit unsettled? We don't find that they are here. There's no, even when they're side by side, the twice-a-day cows can leave and they're quite content. But what I know some farmers are doing is actually allocating them grass in the afternoon. If they're getting a little bit kind of upset that they're not coming in, they'll just give them a fresh break of grass, and that resolves the issue. That they're not bothered by not coming in. So again, like there is probably that added element of management through the heavy covers in autumn, and even through wet weather, that you might need to give them 12-hour breaks, but otherwise 24-hour breaks are fine, or 36-hour this time of year.
Okay, very, very good. Another question, just to clarify, I know you went through the meal rates, but did the meal rate stay the same across the groups?
The meal was the exact same. Yeah, so feeding rates are the exact same across all 3 groups.
Okay, very good. I have one last question in terms of, are you seeing any other benefits, I suppose? Obviously the time one, and the idea of not having to do the evening milking on a Saturday and Sunday and 2 other days is a big one, but is there any other benefits that you're seeing or think
So
that you will take?
Well, we see, like, kind of the cows are heavier, and they tend to be in better condition as well with the 10 and 7. So obviously the numbers that we're dealing with are pretty small, so it's hard to get fertility data on it. But if you kind of extrapolate it out, you would say that improved energy balance should hopefully lead to improved fertility performance in those cows as well.
Okay. And is it similar in terms of Emer, and the fact that did you see yield reduce and solids increase in the group of cows that you switched, or did they stay pretty consistent in terms of with volume and with constituents with the twice a day group?
They stayed pretty similar. Maybe just like, it's not significantly different, but a slight reduction in milk yields, and a little bit of an increase in solids. But overall, I think, like, the reason that it probably you're seeing no difference when you switch halfway through is because you've passed that peak point of lactation. So you've the majority of your milk produced. So they're kind of on the downward curve anyway, at that stage when you change them over. So the effect isn't as dramatic.
Very good. I don't have any further questions, but I see there's another one in there. Yeah, so what's the minimum and maximum time between once a day milkings at the weekends and during the week? So just to explain that in terms of you're trying to keep consistency, I suppose, in terms of
so how we're basically calculating it is, like, if you take, we'll say we're doing our twice a day on the Monday and Wednesday, and once a day on a Tuesday. So you take your evening milking on the Monday evening, and the time of that versus the time on the Wednesday morning that you're going to milk them, and you're kind of splitting the time difference and milking them halfway through. So it's the same then for the weekends, that you take your last milking on the Friday evening and your Monday morning milking, and then you're just putting your 2 milkings on the weekend kind of equidistant between those.
Yep, and that's where we will highlight that that will be there in terms of, we can discuss the schedule and how that actually works at the Moore
But as
Park
I say,
Open Day.
like, the milking times here probably, like, if they're due to be milked at 10, it might be 9:30 or so by the time they come in. So there's a little bit of wiggle room. I think generally cows tend to be very flexible and will deal with most things.
Yeah. Another question, your milk recordings, when do you do them? How do you do them? It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's good that we've people
Somebody's
concerned about
thinking,
completing milk recordings. Absolutely, it's a good question.
So like, I guess it kind of has to be different. So like, say traditionally, if we're milk recording here, we do it every week. We would do it on a say Tuesday evening and a Wednesday morning. But with this study, you need to do it out over 2 days. So you need to capture a once a day and a twice a day at the, like, within the same week.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, very good. I think that's us. Emer, as always, very thorough. Definitely a project that a lot of people will be interested in. Maybe not everyone just yet is aware of that it's ongoing, and that, as you say, look at it, is 1 year's data up until now, but the data is that favourable in terms of that you're repeating the exact same study again this year.
And like the trends, like so far this year, obviously we haven't switched the group over yet, but the trends are the exact same this year compared to last year.
Yeah, which is good to see. As I said, there'll be more information on this at the Moore Park Open Day on the 4th of July. But I think it's important that we had you on and had a conversation around this, because we understand in terms of labour and the constraints in terms of labour, and this could be a game changer in terms of, especially in that second half of the season where you've shown so far that there hasn't been a drop off in production. It could be a game changer from a labour perspective. And as you say, if there's positives, then there's other positives in terms of from a body condition score, possibly a fertility point of view.
And the other things to
those are all
consider
good.
then are the energy that you're saving, the water that you're saving, because you don't have to, wash down the parlour for those 4 milkings.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. And both energy in terms of where it's at, and also in terms of water usage and the conversations around that could become important, especially going into that autumn period. Emer, as always, as I said, very thorough. Thanks a million. You will be available, and you'll probably be involved in several different things in the Moore Park Open Day. I myself are on that milk and frequency stand, so please do pop by, folks, if you have any further questions, and we will endeavour to answer them. So just thanks a million again, Emer, and thanks to our viewers and listeners in terms of some excellent questions there coming in, which show the interest in the topic. Thank you, Emer. See you all next week.
Take care. Bye bye.